Welcome to my channel. This is an indication of some of the things that I cover on a regular basis in my videos. If you haven't already subscribed, please feel free to do so, and don't forget to click the little bell so that you'll get notified of future videos. Please feel free to share my videos on your social media, and I hope you enjoy the video which follows. Isn't that beautiful? I'm planting my Liberation 75 tulips bulbs today. Liberation 75 refers to the fact that next year, the year 2020, will be the 75th anniversary of the Canadian Army liberating the Netherlands from Nazi control in 1945. Very special relationship between Canada and the Netherlands ever since, and more reasons than just the liberation, I guess. I hope I've got my queens straight here, but during the war, when it became evident that the Nazis were going to invade the Netherlands, the Dutch queen was brought to Canada. I believe that was Queen Wilhelmina. I haven't checked to verify that, so if someone checks me out and I'm wrong, I'm not certain really of the name, but I think at the time that was Queen Wilhelmina, and she spent the war years in Ottawa. I'm not sure if she lived at the Netherlands embassy or not, but the one little interesting piece of history that I always remember, she gave birth to Queen Beatrix in Ottawa at the Dutch embassy, and the 4 posts of the bed that she gave birth in were planted in Dutch soil. I've always remembered that little bit from my high school history classes. For some reason, that really sticks in my mind. Well, I'm about to go out and show you where I'm going to plant my Liberation tulips, and during the planting, I'll give you a little more information about them. I'm going to plant my Liberation 75 tulips in the bed that was at one time a very nice lavender bed. It has a few lavender plants surviving. I've been thinking about taking cuttings in the spring and trying to root them. Evidently they root quite easily. But now I've sort of changed my mind. I'm going to take some cuttings today and just put them in water. If they root, I'll plant them and grow them on under lights in the house. But this bed had several different things growing in it this year. Cosmos, for one. And these are all laying over on the ground. The hurricane knocked them over. The stems are quite brittle. I thought if I stood them back up, I would break the stem off. And I want to save seeds from some of these, especially the double ones, like the one that you saw on the close-up there just a minute. So they are going to remain there until I get some seeds off of them, hopefully before we have frost. And I'm just going to plant the tulips sort of in a drift on, well, about 25% of the area of the bed here. Well, the plant above my 2 packages of Liberation 75 tulips is a lupin, hopefully a yellow lupin. I was given a packet of yellow lupin seeds this past winter and planted them here in the spring. I have 4, maybe 5 plants that survived, I guess. And this is the area where I have been adding the organic pro mix that I use to grow my potatoes in. And even though they've only been here a short time, this miserable vetch type plant has come up through it. But my plans are to plant them today. Today is also the day that my larger chicken coop gets cleaned out. I've already taken care of the coop that has the bantams in it and the one that has my few surviving quail in it. Today the big one gets cleaned out and fresh wood shavings put down on the floor. I plan to cover this bed after I've planted the tulips. I plan to cover this bed with, I don't know, 3-4 inches or so of the bedding that's coming out of the coop. It's mixed with manure, but it's a lot of wood shavings as well. I wouldn't put it on anything directly this time of year that was going to grow because it would burn, but it will decompose, compost over the winter, and the winter rains and the spring rains will put the nutrients down into the ground, so it should do the tulips well for producing a bulb for the following season, hopefully. Well, as you can see from the packaging, it's a project that KLM, the Royal Dutch Airlines, has started. And the goal is to grow 1.1 million tulips, Liberation 75 tulips in Canada. One for each of the 1.1 million men and women who served in our military during the Second World War. That would also include my father. He never got overseas. Well, technically he got overseas. He was stationed in Newfoundland, and Newfoundland was still part of the United Kingdom at the time. He was in the Corps of Engineers, and first part of the war they built prisoner of war camps on the Canadian prairies. One place in particular was Medicine Hat. They built a prisoner of war camp. In the last part of the war, even though he was in the Army, he ran a boat, because he was a fisherman and very familiar with how to run boats, out of St. John's Harbor, at least that's what he always told me, to an island, and he took high-ranking, we would now say NATO forces, but NATO didn't exist, Allied forces, officers, Canadians, Americans, English, maybe other countries, I don't know, took them to an island where they spent the day, and he brought them back. And he said he never understood what happened on the island. I've looked on maps, I can't find an island, unless you cross the peninsula and don't go right out of St. John's Harbor. So anyway, my father's no longer around, I can't ask him any questions, but one of the tulips is planted in his memory. So I bought 30, 2 packages, there's 15 to a package, and each package $1 from your purchase price is donated to the Royal Canadian Legion. The rest of the money, except of course the actual cost of the tulips, but the rest of what would have been considered profit goes to support the Canadian Tulip Festival. Now the Netherlands government every year since 1945 sends thousands of tulip bulbs to Canada. They're all planted in the National Capital Region, Ottawa, and surrounding area at parks and government buildings, and a lot of them are planted at the Parliament buildings in Ottawa, and that's the annual Tulip Festival is courtesy of the Netherlands. They do this in thanks of their liberation and also in thanks of keeping their queen during the war. Well, let's get these in the ground. The instructions say that you can plant them 2 inches apart, and they should be planted 6 inches deep. I just scattered mine on the surface of the area where I want to plant them because I'd like it to sort of look organic when they come up. I don't want little soldiers all in a row. Soldiers might be appropriate with these though, I guess. And they look nicer in groupings of 5 or so, but I think I still want to plant them sort of in a drift. So they obviously get planted, pointy end up, and at least 6 inches down, especially here with our winters. Hid one right there, didn't I? That I've got to watch out for, I guess. If you have never been to the Netherlands in the spring, let me tell you, it is a sight to be seen. Just a few years ago now, I was there, first time and only time. Stayed in Amsterdam mostly and traveled in that area, but we took a day trip to the Keukenhof Gardens, and man, Google the Keukenhof Gardens if you have never heard tell of it or seen it before. What a magnificent sight that is in the spring, with thousands of various kinds of bulbs in bloom. Something that I would not mind at all going back to do again some point. I don't know if there are very many Canadian World War II veterans still alive or not. They would be very old men and women if they are. And I don't know if they would, be able to travel for the 75th anniversary. If any of them are able, I'm sure they'll be there. The last big one was the 50th anniversary, and there were still lots of Canadian veterans alive, and the reception that they received in the Netherlands was absolutely astounding. They were given special parades and honors everywhere. One man from here on the island, at least, that I knew, he was there. Well, you don't need to watch me put these in holes. I'll give you a little look of what it looks like when I get it top dressed with chicken manure. What I forgot to mention is there will be a link below the video to the Liberation 75 tulip sale. They're still available. In most parts of Canada, it's still plenty early enough to plant them, so if any Canadians are interested in ordering their Liberation 75 tulips, I think they still have lots of time to do it. Here I would plant them up until perhaps the end of October without any problem. The ground won't freeze even in early November. But you want them to get a chance to start to grow. They won't send up anything above the surface, but you want them to get a chance to root in the ground. So at any rate, they will be down below if you want to buy them. I don't think they're available outside of Canada. Possibly if you live in Europe, you can still buy Liberation 75s from some Dutch bulb supplier. Well, I just finished my mulching project with the dressing, the floor covering, manure and shavings out of the chicken coop. This is a good day to do it. It's a bit overcast, still very warm and humid for this time of year. This is the 23rd of September. But tomorrow we're supposed to have rain, so that's good. That'll get this watered in, wet down so that it won't blow away in the wind and whatever. Now I'm going to take some clippings, I guess, of my lavender and see if I can root those this fall. Well, thank you very much for watching.